The city was quiet under the pale light of the twin moons, the streets empty except for the soft hum of distant engines. He walked slowly, his senses alert, knowing danger could be anywhere. His eyes caught movement near a crumbling wall, a small shadow that shivered and moved like it was alive. He crouched, careful not to make a sound, and saw her, tiny, trembling, with glowing eyes that reflected fear more than light. She was no bigger than a child, her skin pale with a faint shimmer, her hair long and silver like threads of moonlight. He felt a strange pull in his chest, a mix of curiosity and concern. She noticed him immediately, her eyes wide with panic, and she scrambled backward, pressing herself against the ivy that covered the wall. Her small hands clutched at the leaves as if they could protect her from him. "I won't hurt you," he whispered, his voice low and soft, hoping to calm her. She tilted her head, studying him, unsure if his words were truth or trap. Her heart raced, and she took a trembling step away, but the wall ended, leaving her with no place to hide. He stayed still, not moving an inch, letting her see he meant no harm. The wind rustled the leaves, carrying the scent of strange flowers from the hidden garden behind the wall, and he realized this place was forgotten by the city, a small secret of green life in the concrete. She took another step, closer to the edge of the garden, her tiny feet making soft sounds on the cracked stones. He noticed how fragile she looked, like a delicate creature from a dream, yet her eyes held a spark, a defiance that would not let fear rule her entirely. He extended a hand slowly, keeping his movements calm. "Come closer, I just want to help," he said. His words were simple, but they carried something more, a promise that no one had kept for her in a long time. She hesitated, biting her lip, unsure if she could trust him. Her glowing eyes flicked toward the shadows, as if she expected danger to jump out. He followed her gaze but saw nothing, only the garden behind the wall, hiding its secrets in darkness. A small breeze lifted her silver hair, brushing it across her face, and he felt an ache in his chest. He knelt to make himself smaller, so he would not seem threatening, and waited patiently. She took a tiny step toward him, then another, until she was close enough that he could see the softness of her glowing skin. He smiled gently, trying not to scare her. "It's okay, you're safe here," he said. The garden seemed to respond, the leaves rustling as if whispering encouragement. She tilted her head, curiosity mingling with fear. Her small hands reached out, barely brushing his fingers, and he felt a jolt, a connection that was unexpected and strange. He held his hand steady, letting her decide how close she wanted to be. The shadows of the city seemed far away now, replaced by the quiet hum of the garden. She whispered something, almost inaudible. I'm alone," and her voice carried a weight of sorrow that made his chest tighten. He wanted to say something, anything, to make her feel less alone, but he only nodded, showing her that he understood. The wind carried a scent of something unfamiliar and sweet, and he realized this small place was her refuge, hidden and secret. She finally took another step, sitting on a cracked stone, still cautious but less afraid. He knelt beside her, careful to give her space. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The tiny alien girl hesitated, then whispered a name that sounded like music, strange and beautiful. He repeated it softly. "I'm glad I met you," her name. And she looked at him with a flicker of trust. The city lights were distant, and for the first time in a long while, she felt she might be safe. He stayed there, watching her, knowing this was only the beginning of something neither of them fully understood. The hidden garden wrapped them in quiet and shadow, and the bond between them, fragile but real, began to grow. The night had grown darker, and the city's alleys seemed to stretch endlessly, twisting and turning like a maze. He moved cautiously, the tiny alien girl clinging to his side, her small hands gripping his coat. Every shadow seemed alive, shifting and hiding threats he could not see. She shivered, not from cold but from fear, and he felt a surge of protectiveness he could not explain. "Stay close," he whispered, his eyes scanning every corner. She nodded, her glowing eyes flicking nervously from one shadow to the next. The alley ahead was narrow, walls covered with grime and old posters that fluttered in the wind. Strange noises echoed, metal scraping, distant footsteps, whispers that made the hair on his neck rise. He sensed they were not alone. Someone, or something, was following them, moving silently just beyond the edges of light. The tiny girl froze, her small body pressed against him, and he could feel her heartbeat against his side. "It's okay. I'm here," he said. Though he did not know if that would be enough, a sudden rustle made her jump, and she let out a small squeak. The sound was enough to make him tense, his hand moving instinctively toward the small weapon at his belt. But he held it, waiting, letting the shadows reveal themselves. A figure darted across the alley, quick and silent, and he caught a glimpse of strange armor that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. The alien girl gasped. "Hunters!" she whispered, and her voice was trembling. He gritted his teeth, understanding that she was in real danger. He had to act fast, yet carefully. The alley opened into a small square, abandoned but littered with crates and broken carts. Perfect for an ambush. He led her behind a stack of crates, giving them cover. Their pursuers moved with precision, searching, sniffing the air like predators. The tiny girl's small hand tightened on his. "Why do they want me?" he asked, her voice barely audible. He shook his head. "I don't know, but we'll find out, and we'll get through this." Her eyes shone with a strange light, and he noticed something he hadn't seen before, a faint energy radiating from her tiny form. It pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat of its own. The hunters stopped for a moment, as if sensing the energy, hesitation flickering in their movements. He took a slow breath, trying to calm both himself and her. Then, with a sudden surge of courage, he whispered, "We move on my signal." And she nodded, trusting him completely. He glanced around, finding a narrow path along the side of a collapsed wall, barely wide enough for them. It would let them escape the hunters' line of sight. They moved slowly, every step measured, hearts pounding. The alien girl whispered a warning. "They're close." And he saw the shimmer of movement in the corner of his eye. One hunter paused, scanning the shadows, and for a moment time seemed to freeze. The girl's small hand squeezed his arm, urging him forward, and he moved, leading her through the narrow path, silent steps, careful breathing, the hunters behind them, but not yet aware of the escape. They rounded the corner into a hidden courtyard, overgrown with vines and debris. A safe place for now. He let out a quiet sigh of relief, kneeling to her level. "We're safe for a moment," he said, and she leaned slightly against him, her trust growing. Her glowing eyes met his, full of fear, but also a flicker of hope. The city seemed far away. The danger momentarily paused, but both knew it could return at any moment. The alley had tested them, shown them the hunter's persistence, and forged a fragile bond between human and tiny alien girl. He stared at her, determination settling in his chest. They would survive this night together, no matter what the shadows held. The hidden courtyard was quiet, lit only by the faint glow of distant city lights. He set down a small bag he had carried, careful not to make noise. The tiny alien girl crouched behind a pile of rubble, her silver hair catching the faint light, her glowing eyes wide and alert. He knelt near her, keeping his movements slow and calm. "It's okay. We're safe for now," he whispered. His words seemed to ease her slightly, but she still trembled. Her small hands gripped his coat, unsure if she should trust him completely. He glanced around the courtyard, making sure there were no hidden threats. The shadows twisted with every flicker of moonlight, reminding him that danger could return at any moment. She finally spoke, her voice soft and hesitant. I don't know if anyone will come for me." Her words carried loneliness and sorrow that pierced his chest. He wanted to say something that would make her feel safe, but words felt too small for the weight she carried. He just nodded, letting his presence speak for him. The air smelled of damp stone and strange flowers growing between cracks, a quiet scent that made the place feel alive in its own way. She inched closer, curious despite her fear. He stayed still, letting her decide how near she wanted to be. Her glowing eyes reflected trust, but also caution. He watched her small form, delicate and trembling, yet strong in ways he did not yet understand. "You're not alone," he said finally, his voice gentle but firm. She looked at him, unsure if he truly meant it. Then a faint noise echoed from the alley outside, a scrape of metal and soft footfalls. Her ears twitched, and she froze. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, grounding her. "It's okay. I hear it too. But we're safe here." The sound lingered for a moment, tension thick in the air, but then faded, leaving only silence. She let out a soft breath she had been holding. He smiled slightly, relieved, but knew the danger wasn't gone. They settled near an old fountain in the courtyard, its water dry and cracked. He offered her a small piece of food from his bag, a simple gesture, and she took it hesitantly, eyes never leaving his face. She chewed slowly, as if tasting safety for the first time in a long while. He watched her, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. A bond was forming, fragile but undeniable. The courtyard seemed to wrap around them, shadows providing cover, yet also keeping secrets. She whispered a question. "Will they come back?" And her voice quivered. He shook his head. "We'll be ready if they do." His tone carried determination, and she nodded, trusting his words. The moonlight shifted, brushing across her face, soft and silver. He noticed her small smile, fleeting but real. The first night was proving difficult but also revealing. The tiny alien girl had begun to trust him, if only a little, and that trust felt precious. He remained alert, every sense tuned to the darkness beyond, ready to protect her if danger returned. But for now, the night held a fragile peace, one they could both rest in for a while. He glanced at her sleeping figure, small and delicate, and felt a promise form in his heart. No matter what came, he would not let anything happen to her. The hidden courtyard was quiet, shadows stretching long, and the first night of their journey together ended, with trust slowly taking root between human and tiny alien girl. The morning light crept slowly into the hidden courtyard, casting long golden beams over cracked stone and tangled vines. The tiny alien girl stirred, blinking against the soft light, her glowing eyes dimming slightly as she adjusted. He watched her carefully, noting every movement, her small hands fidgeting with a piece of torn cloth. "Good morning," he said quietly, not wanting to startle her. She looked up, wary but attentive. "Are we really safe?" she asked, her voice small. He shook his head slowly. "We're safe for now, but we have to stay careful." She nodded, and for the first time he noticed how sharp her gaze could be, always scanning, always alert. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small device, its screen flickering with light. "I want to know more about where you came from," he said gently. She hesitated, then whispered, I can't stay there." And her eyes filled with fear. He leaned closer, trying to show he understood. "You don't have to explain everything right now, just tell me what you can." Her small hands trembled as she touched the device, curious but cautious. Slowly she spoke, her voice soft but steadying. "I was taken from my home, far from here. They wanted something from me." Her words sent a chill through him, and he realized the danger they had narrowly escaped was only part of a bigger story. He nodded, understanding the weight of her confession. "I'll help you," he said firmly. "We'll find a way to keep you safe." She looked at him, searching his face, and for a moment he thought she might run, but she stayed. Her trust was growing, fragile but real. The courtyard felt different in the morning, safer in some ways, but the shadows from the night before still lingered in the corners. He noticed movement beyond the walls, a flicker of light and shadow that reminded him the hunters had not given up. He kept quiet, signaling the Girl to stay close. She understood immediately, moving closer to him, her small hand finding his sleeve. Together they watched the distant movement, waiting for a moment when it would pass. The alien girl then spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "I have something you should see," and she reached into a hidden pocket of her small coat. He watched curiously as she pulled out a small crystal, glowing softly with an inner light. This is from my world," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It will protect me, if I can use it right." He took the crystal gently in his hand, feeling its warmth and strange energy. "It's beautiful," he said, "and it will help us." She looked at him, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "Can you help me?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, I'll help you learn to use it." The crystal's glow seemed to pulse, responding to her heartbeat, and he realized it was more than a trinket. It was a key to her past, a link to her powers. The hunters could return at any moment, but for now, the small courtyard held them in a fragile peace. The alien girl's secrets were beginning to surface, and with each revelation he felt the responsibility settle heavier on his shoulders. He watched her closely, knowing that protecting her meant understanding her fully, and that her survival depended on more than just hiding. The morning breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it the scent of flowers and distant danger. The tiny alien girl looked at him, a spark of trust shining in her glowing eyes. "I think I can believe you," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Then we'll face this together." And for the first time, the hidden courtyard felt like a place where they could plan their next move. Secrets were revealed, trust was growing, and the journey that had begun in fear was now moving toward hope. The afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the hidden courtyard. The tiny alien girl clutched the glowing crystal tightly, her small body tense with anticipation. He moved slowly beside her, scanning the edges of the courtyard, senses alert for any sign of danger. The city beyond was silent, but he knew silence often meant waiting for the strike. A faint sound made him freeze, a soft scuff of boots on cracked stone. He gestured for the girl to stay still, and she pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. Shadows stretched across the courtyard, moving unnaturally, and he realized the hunters had returned. Their armor shimmered faintly in the dying sunlight, strange and threatening, and their eyes scanned the area like predators. He shifted slightly, keeping himself between the girl and the approaching threat. "We need to move," he whispered, and she nodded, trusting him completely. He spotted a narrow exit between two broken walls, barely wide enough for them to slip through. He led her silently, every step careful and measured. The hunters paused, sensing movement, their heads turning slowly as if they could hear the smallest heartbeat. She froze, and he whispered, "Keep going, don't stop." Her glowing eyes reflected fear, but also determination. They moved like shadows themselves, silent and quick, weaving through the courtyard. The crystal in her hand pulsed softly, its glow increasing as the hunters drew closer. She looked at him wide-eyed. "It's reacting," she whispered. He nodded. "It wants to protect you. Use it if you need to." The hunters advanced, their steps heavy now, the quiet of the courtyard broken by the sound of their approach. He felt his heart pound, knowing they had to act fast. The alien girl raised the crystal slightly, its light flaring, casting strange patterns on the walls. The hunters halted, their eyes narrowing, sensing the strange energy radiating from the small object. He seized the moment, grabbing her hand gently. "Run!" he shouted, and they dashed toward the narrow exit. Shadows stretched and twisted as the hunters gave chase, their movements precise and threatening. The alley beyond the courtyard was narrow and dark, perfect for hiding, but only if they could reach it. She stumbled slightly, but he caught her, steadying her, and she squeezed his hand tightly. The crystal glowed brighter, and he realized it could create a shield, a barrier between them and the hunters. He focused, guiding her. "Now lift it, focus." The glow expanded, forming a faint wall of light that shimmered and bent around them. The hunters hesitated, surprised by the sudden burst of energy, giving them the precious seconds they needed. They ran through the alley, the crystal's glow lighting their path, every step taking them farther from the immediate danger. But he knew it would not stop the hunters forever. They ducked behind a pile of crates, panting, the girl's small body trembling against his side. "They're strong," she whispered. "But we are stronger together," he said firmly, and she looked up at him with trust that warmed his chest. The crystal's light pulsed softly, like a heartbeat of protection, and he realized this small, fragile girl held a power that could change everything. The hunters were close, but for now, they were safe, hidden in the shadows of the alley. Their first real test had come, and they had survived. The tiny alien girl's fear was still there, but it was joined now with trust, courage, and the first spark of hope. The city loomed around them, dangerous and vast, but together, human and tiny alien girl were ready to face whatever came next. The alley was quiet now, but the tension hung thick like fog. He and the tiny alien girl crouched behind a pile of crates, hearts still racing from their narrow escape. She clutched the glowing crystal, its soft light illuminating her small, trembling face. He whispered, "We need to keep moving before they find us again." She nodded, but her eyes darted nervously down the alley, scanning every shadow. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed, footsteps, but not heavy or threatening. Lighter, cautious, almost like someone was watching. He signaled for the girl to stay quiet, and he moved a few steps forward, peering into the dim light. A figure emerged from the shadows, hooded and careful, hands raised slightly, not in attack but in greeting. He tensed, ready for a fight, but something about the way the figure moved told him they were not a hunter. Wait, the stranger said, voice low but calm. I'm not here to hurt you. The alien girl peeked from behind him, eyes wide and curious. Who are you? She asked, her voice small. The figure lowered their hood, revealing a human face, sharp and kind, with eyes that seemed to see more than what was in front of them. Name's Kieran, he said. I've been tracking the hunters for a while. He looked at the glowing crystal in her hands and nodded. I know what you have, and I know what they want. The girl's small body stiffened, fear mixing with confusion. He stepped closer to her, offering comfort. It's okay. We can trust him. The stranger crouched to their level, speaking softly. You don't have to fight alone. I can help. The tiny alien girl hesitated, then nodded slightly, sensing the honesty in his words. Kieran glanced around the alley, his eyes sharp. They're organized, dangerous, but they underestimate you. He turned to the human. And you're strong, Kieran said, his voice carrying weight. Together, we can outsmart them, he felt a surge of relief, realizing help had arrived at the right moment. The three of them moved cautiously through the alley, the glowing crystal lighting their path, Kieran leading, using knowledge of the city's hidden corners. The alien girl stayed close to him, trust slowly growing with each step. Why are you helping us? She asked, curiosity breaking through her fear. Kieran smiled faintly, because some things are worth protecting, and some people are worth trusting. She blinked, not fully understanding, but feeling the truth in his words. They turned a corner and froze as a shadow moved across the wall ahead. The hunters had not stopped, but they had not expected an ally. Kieran raised his hand, signaling them to stay quiet. He and the girl crouched low as Kieran whispered, "Follow me. There's a place you can rest safely for a while." They ran through narrow passages and abandoned buildings, moving fast but carefully. The tiny alien girl's glowing eyes reflected hope for the first time since the hunt began. The crystal pulsed softly, as if recognizing the presence of another protector. Kieran glanced at them. We have a chance to fight back now, to stay alive. He felt a wave of determination, knowing they were no longer completely alone. Together, human and tiny alien girl had found an unexpected ally, someone who understood the hunters and could help them survive. The night was still dangerous, the city still full of shadows, but with Kieran by their side, hope burned brighter than the fear. The tiny alien girl whispered softly, I think we can do this. And he smiled, feeling the first true sense of courage since this journey began. The hunters were coming, but they would not face them alone, not anymore. The night air was thick with tension, shadows stretching across the rooftops like dark fingers. He and the tiny alien girl crouched behind a stack of crates, Kieran beside them, all three alert to the slightest sound. The glowing crystal in her hands pulsed softly, its light a beacon in the darkness. The hunters' voices echoed faintly from the distance, sharp and commanding. They are close, Kieran whispered, scanning the area. We have to be ready. The alien girl's small body trembled, but she held the crystal tightly, eyes focused. He knelt beside her, whispering, Remember, stay close to me and trust the crystal. She nodded, her fear tempered by the presence of allies. A sudden noise from above made all three freeze. A hunter leapt from a rooftop, landing silently behind them. He reacted instantly, grabbing the hunter's wrist and twisting it, sending him sprawling into a heap of rubble. The alien girl gasped, but Kieran moved quickly, grabbing another hunter who had come up the alley. The glow from the crystal flared, sending a wave of light that threw the hunters back. Their weapons clanged against the walls as the light pushed them to the edges. Use it, he shouted, and she raised the crystal higher, its light growing stronger, blinding and protective. The hunters hissed and cursed, unprepared for the power of the small alien girl. Kieran leapt forward, striking quickly, disabling any who came close. He followed, blocking and dodging with careful precision, protecting the girl at all costs. She began to understand the crystal, focusing on its energy, sending waves that knocked the hunters off balance. Each flash of light and pulse of energy made her stronger, and her confidence grew. He watched her, amazed at how such a small figure could wield such power. The hunters regrouped, trying to flank them from both sides. Move with me, he shouted, leading the Gers, Elle and Kieran through a narrow passage. The crystal's light stretched like a shield around them, deflecting attacks. They emerged into an open courtyard, the moonlight reflecting off broken metal and scattered stones. The hunters charged, but the girl stood her ground, crystal raised high. Her energy pulsed faster, brighter, like a heartbeat of courage. He felt the warmth of her trust, the bond between them stronger than ever. Kieran fought beside them, precise and lethal, disabling any hunter who got too close. They moved as a team, each protecting the other. The alien girl's power surged, sending a wave of energy that knocked the hunters back. Their weapons clattered to the ground, and for a moment, silence reigned. The tiny alien girl lowered the crystal, breathing heavily, her small body trembling but victorious. He knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he whispered. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes shining with relief and pride. Kieran wiped sweat from his brow, nodding. "We've won, for now." But even in victory, he knew the danger was far from over. The hunters might return, but they had proven that human and alien could fight together, that courage and trust could overcome fear and darkness. The tiny alien girl smiled faintly, the crystal still glowing softly in her hands. He smiled back, feeling a bond that could not be broken. Together, they had faced impossible odds, and together, they had survived. The courtyard was quiet once more, moonlight casting long, gentle shadows, and for the first time since the journey began, hope filled the night. The first light of dawn crept over the city, painting the rooftops in soft gold. He and the tiny alien girl stood at the edge of a quiet square, the glowing crystal resting gently in her small hands. Its soft light was calmer now, almost peaceful, signaling that the danger had passed. She looked up at him, eyes wide and curious. "What now?" she asked softly, her voice still trembling from the night's events. He knelt beside her, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Now, we start again," he said gently. "We find a place where you can be safe, where you can learn to control your power." She nodded slowly, hope shining in her glowing eyes for the first time in what felt like forever. Kieran approached them, his steps careful but confident. "I know a place," he said. "Hidden, secure. No hunters will find us there." The tiny alien girl's face brightened slightly, and she squeezed his hand, feeling the promise of safety. Together, the three of them moved through the quiet streets, each step lighter than the last. The city was still dangerous, but the fear of last night felt smaller, almost distant. She clutched the crystal close, feeling its warmth like a heartbeat of reassurance. As they turned a corner, he looked at her and said, "You were amazing yesterday." She blinked, a small smile forming. "I was with you," she whispered. Her trust in him had grown stronger than ever, and it filled him with a quiet pride. They passed abandoned buildings and quiet courtyards, moving quickly but carefully. The city seemed to watch them, shadows lingering, but nothing dared to approach. Kieran led them to a narrow street, almost hidden between two tall buildings, and stopped in front of a small door. "Here," he said, "inside, you'll be safe." They entered, and the room was simple but warm, sunlight filtering through a cracked window. Dust danced in the light, and the tiny alien girl's eyes widened in wonder. "It's peaceful," she whispered. The crystal's glow dimmed slightly, as if it too felt the safety of this place. He set down his bag and turned to her. "This is your new beginning," he said. "You can rest, learn, and grow here." She looked around, then at him, and for the first time she allowed herself to smile fully, free of fear. I think I can stay here," she said softly. He nodded. "And I'll be here with you." Their bond had been tested by fear and danger, but it had grown stronger, unbreakable in its trust and care. Kieran leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a faint smile on his face. "You two make a good team," he said, and they both laughed softly, the sound light and freeing after so much tension. Outside the city was waking, unaware of the battles fought and won in its shadows. But inside this small room, hope was alive, growing, and the tiny alien girl felt it in every pulse of the crystal she held. She looked at him, eyes bright. "Thank you for saving me," she said quietly. He knelt again, meeting her gaze. "No, thank you for trusting me." Their hands touched briefly, a silent promise passing between them. Together, human and alien girl had survived the hunters, faced impossible odds, and now, for the first time, they could dream of the future. A future where fear did not rule, where trust and courage guided their steps. The crystal pulsed softly, a heartbeat of hope, and he knew that this was only the beginning, not the end, but a new journey, one they would face together with courage, trust, and the bond that had grown stronger than any danger. The tiny alien girl looked out the window, sunlight warming her face, and whispered, "I think I'm finally home." And he smiled, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. The quiet of the safe house was deceptive, calm only on the surface. He and the tiny alien girl sat together, the glowing crystal resting between them, its soft light filling the small room with warmth. But even in the peace, the memory of the hunters lingered, shadows of the past refusing to disappear completely. She traced her fingers over the smooth surface of the crystal. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked softly, her voice barely more than a whisper. He took her small hand in his. "They might," he said honestly, "but we'll be ready." She looked at him, worry and trust mingling in her glowing eyes. "How can we be ready?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "By learning, by staying together, and by trusting each other." Outside, the city stretched endlessly, the rooftops catching the first rays of the sun, but danger could still hide in any corner. A faint noise made them freeze, a soft scuffing sound, distant but familiar. He moved to the window, peering through the small crack, and his eyes narrowed. Shadows moved across the alley outside, smaller than before, but still dangerous. "Hunters," he whispered, tension tightening his chest. The tiny alien girl held the crystal close, its glow intensifying slightly as if sensing the threat. "We can't hide forever," he said. "We need to fight smart, not just run." Kieran appeared from the doorway, leaning against the frame. "I've been tracking them," he said quietly. "They're testing us, seeing if we've grown stronger." He nodded, knowing Kieran was right. The hunters were cunning, always searching for weaknesses. "We need a plan," he said, eyes meeting hers. "Something that will keep us safe and make them hesitate." She thought for a moment, then whispered, "The crystal. It reacts to fear but also to courage." He realized she was right. "Then we use that," he said. "We show courage not just to defend ourselves but to surprise them." They prepared quickly, moving through the small house and checking every exit. The tiny alien girl practiced focusing the crystal, sending out small pulses of light to feel its strength. He watched her, impressed at how quickly she learned. Kieran prepared their few weapons, not many, but enough to protect themselves if needed. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows into the streets, hiding and revealing at the same time. He looked at the tiny alien girl, her small figure determined despite the fear. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded firmly, holding the crystal up, its glow steady and bright. They stepped outside carefully, moving through the narrow streets, every sense alert. The hunters were there, waiting, but this time, the human and the tiny alien girl did not flinch. They stood together, courage radiating from them, stronger than the hunters expected. The crystal pulsed with power, and he realized this was not just protection. It was a signal, a warning, that they were no longer helpless. The hunters paused, sensing the change, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. He whispered to the girl, "This is our chance. Stay close." She squeezed his hand, determination burning in her eyes. Together, human and tiny alien girl faced the shadows of the past, not running, not hiding, but standing firm, ready to turn fear into strength. The streets were silent, tension thick, but for the first time, they were not alone in facing the danger. The crystal pulsed softly, like a heartbeat of courage, and he knew that tomorrow's fight could decide everything. The first rays of sunlight broke through the horizon, painting the city in gold and silver. He, the tiny alien girl, and Kieran stood on the rooftop, the glowing crystal pulsing steadily in her small hands. Its light was stronger now, steady and sure, reflecting the courage they had built together. Below, the hunters were gathering, their numbers greater than before, but hesitation showed in their movements. They had learned fear, and now they faced resolve. He looked at the tiny alien girl, seeing her determination mirrored in her glowing eyes. "This is it," he whispered. "The final fight." She nodded, gripping the crystal tightly. "I'm ready," she said, and for the first time fear was absent, only focus remained. Kieran adjusted his stance beside them. "They may come fast, but we know their moves," he said, scanning the streets below. "We're not running anymore." He nodded, taking a deep breath. "No, we fight together." The hunters began their approach, stepping cautiously but confidently, unaware of the strength waiting above. The tiny alien girl raised the crystal, and its light shot out in a brilliant arc, blinding the first few hunters and sending them stumbling. He leapt forward, intercepting any who tried to climb the walls, his movements precise and protective. Kieran moved with them, striking quickly to disable the rest. The city streets echoed with shouts and the clash of weapons, but the light from the crystal protected and guided them. The tiny alien girl focused, sending waves of energy that pushed the hunters back, each pulse stronger than the last. He watched her, amazed at her growth, a small figure commanding the battlefield with courage and power. The hunters hesitated, realizing they underestimated this human and alien duo. Their attacks became cautious, slower, giving the trio the advantage. He grabbed her hand, pulling her to higher ground. "Keep but steady, focus," he shouted. She obeyed, letting the crystal's light flow through her, a steady pulse of energy that knocked hunters off their feet. Kieran dispatched the remaining hunters, precise and calm, ensuring none could rise again. The streets fell silent, the dust and smoke settling. The hunters lay defeated, their fear now overwhelming. They would not return, at least not for a long time. He knelt beside the tiny alien girl, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You did it," he said, pride and relief in his voice. She smiled, glowing softly in the light of the crystal. "We did it. Together," she said. Her voice held strength, courage, and hope. The city, once dangerous and shadowed, now felt lighter, safer, even alive. Kieran approached, nodding with respect. "You've both changed this place," he said. "And yourselves." The tiny alien girl looked up at him, eyes bright. "I feel free," she whispered. "Safe." He smiled, seeing the trust in her eyes, the bond they had formed stronger than any fear or danger. The crystal pulsed softly, like a heartbeat of triumph, and he realized it symbolized not just her power, but their unity. The sun rose higher, bathing them in warmth, a new day, a new beginning. No hunters, no shadows, only hope and courage. They stood together on the rooftop, human and alien girl, allies and friends, ready to face whatever the universe could throw at them next. The tiny alien girl held the crystal high, light spreading across the city like a signal, a promise. They had survived, they had fought, and now, the final dawn marked the start of a future filled with courage, trust, and the bond that no darkness could ever break.